Northwestern Young Americans for Freedom and NU College Republicans host anti-LGBTQ conspiracy theorist Dr. James Lindsay. We take you there live.
Plus, uniting against racism. The Evanston YWCA hosted its annual Unite Against Racism rally. Hear from organizers and attendees.
And a furry new home. The Evanston Animal Shelter awarded almost $7 million earlier this year. We check in on the new facility.
All that and more tonight on the Northwestern News Report.
It's your news
right now. Hello and welcome to a special one-hour edition of the Northwestern News Report. I'm Gabrielle Coriati.
And I'm Julia Richardson. We start with a controversial speaker on campus right now. In just a moment, we'll bring you live to Swift Hall, where students are protesting a talk by Dr. James Lindsay. The Southern Poverty Law Center calls him a leading voice in the anti-student inclusion, anti-LGBTQ, and conspiracy propaganda movements. Tonight's event is co-sponsored by Northwestern Young Americans for Freedom, a new registered student group, and NU College Republicans. And we're covering this from all angles tonight, but we'll start with NNN's Michaela Denault. Michaela, what do we know about James Lindsay?
Thanks, Julia. Well, he's most known for his role in duping academic journals to publish fake research on gender, queer, and critical race studies. It was a stunt to identify political bias in academic scholarship on identity. The 43-year-old supports a long list of conspiracy theories, including a supposed communist takeover of the world, white genocide theory, and, quote, groomer rhetoric against the LGBTQ+ community. Lindsay called the pride flag one of a, quote, hostile energy, unquote, and even before this event got underway, the flyer was causing controversy. It prominently features a pride flag with a skull and crossbones on top of it. The Associated Student Government poised to take action on that. Senators will meet tomorrow for an emergency meeting. They'll vote on emergency legislation that will freeze funding and for NU College Republicans and Young Americans for Freedom. The action is being taken on the basis of an NU discrimination policy. The bill is authored by ASG current and outgoing executive officers of Justice and Inclusion and chair of the Justice and Inclusion Committee. The bill also says ASG will write a set of, quote, just and inclusive bylaws for ASG recognized and SAFC funded student organizations. We'll, of course, follow the updates.
Michaela, thank you.
Joining us now is NNN's Andrew Rowan. He's live now outside Losi Hall. Andrew, what's the scene like there?
Hi, Gabrielle. Well, yeah, we're outside here outside of Swift Hall, and there's a sizable crowd. Let me step out of the way so I can show you. In the last couple of minutes, they have been inviting a variety of speakers speaking about how proud they are to be part of the LGBTQ community, to be part of the Northwestern community, and the welcoming place that it is. And of course, they're implying that the speaker who is coming and who is here inside speaking now is not welcoming, and it speaks to a lot of views that are antithetical to the university's values and mission. So I also want to explain why you might see a lot of protesters covering their face. It has to do with the university's demonstration policy. We can put it up, and in a nutshell, it says anyone can protest, but it can't impact the operation of the event. If that occurs, the university, in that case, can take disciplinary action. Now, it's difference between It's basically playing out here over a battle of free speech. We spoke with the Medill professor, Karen Ward. She told us a little bit about debate around free speech and when does a free speech debate no longer play into facts when it gets into conspiracy theories. Take a listen to what she had to say.
So if you are saying this person shouldn't have a place to speak in our university, then you have to have the evidence as to why this person isn't just stating views on policies, on ideas, right? Just having controversial ideas doesn't negate someone from speaking. We want that back and forth, that discussion. But what we don't want are the lies and the lack of evidence.
And we don't know the type of discussion that's going on inside just yet, but our own Logan Schijano is inside. He's taking notes, and later in the broadcast, he's going to bring us those notes and tell us what exactly it was spoken inside. So stick around for that. But for now, outside of Swift Hall, Andrew Rowan, Northwestern News Network.
Thanks, Andrew. We'll be following this story closely, but now we turn to an update on another developing story. Over the weekend, the Evanston Police Department naming a suspect in the April 12th shooting at Clark Street Beach. 20-year-old Jalen Murray identified as the man who shot and killed 18-year-old Jock Irby and injured 2 others. NNN's Logan Schijano joins us now. Logan, I know you've been following this story for us. What other information do you have for this latest update?
Well, Gabrielle, this press release that came out over the weekend said that Murray was arrested on Friday by the Evanston Police Department and that he is being charged with 1 felony count of first-degree murder and 2 felony counts of first-degree attempted murder. Now, Murray's bond was set at $750,000. He had a preliminary hearing actually this morning in the Skokie District Court, and he is actually still in jail at this moment, and his charges are going over to a grand jury to see if they will officially indict him on May 18th.
Thank you so much, Logan, for going to that hearing in Skokie earlier today. And Logan, in response to the shooting, Northwestern did a routine review of its security and safety protocols. Is the university committed to making these changes?
Well, like you said, Gabrielle, this email came out on Friday. The update about their review was at the bottom of the email, and it said that the university is working to develop a more extensive list of automated emergency messages that are quicker and easier to send. Of course, we all remember the message that came out during the night of the shooting that said university police are responding to a report of blank on the Evanston campus at blank. The update also said that Northwestern is conducting a review of campus buildings to identify which doors could be difficult or confusing to lock. Of course, we should note that some students reported that they were in rooms that didn't have locks on the doors at all.
Thank you so much, Logan, for staying on top of this important story for us.
And here on campus, students are mobilizing against issues including the increased police presence put in place in response to the beach shooting. 55 years after student organizers negotiated with NU administration to address racism and mistreatment of Black students on campus, students are saying Northwestern still has work to do to improve Black students' experiences. NNN's Bridget Aduadier brings us this story.
We are students, we are supposed to be the ultimate stakeholders in this educational experience, and our desires are continuously being ignored.
Student activists mobilizing for more racial equality on campus and petitioning Northwestern administration for a 10% increase in funding to Black student organizations, an end to harmful policing of Black spaces, and a review of the unmet demands of the 1968 Bursar's Office takeover.
We're really fighting for self-determination.
Issuing a petition on April 18th and giving NU 7 days to respond. Activists say they received a response and are planning a meeting to discuss their demands. In an email to NNN, University spokesperson John Yates says he can, quote, confirm that the president's office is working with the students to set up a meeting, but he did not provide comment regarding Northwestern's position on the demands.
I think that Black students should learn to expect more from the university.
In 1968, over 100 Northwestern students occupied the bursar's office in protest of racism on campus. After 38 hours, they reached a resolution. Administration agreed to meet 10 out of 14 demands.
This was something we were granted in 68, but this is what it's looking like today. And this is where we need that support.
This April, students gathered in a protest to draw attention to the demands that weren't granted, like the assurance of 10 to 12% Black student representation in each incoming class. Also, with increased university security in response to the April 12th Clark Street Beach shooting, some students say that more police isn't the answer.
Police are not people who keep us safe. In fact, for Black students, often endanger us more than they do keep us safe.
Wilson says the recent mobilization of students is part of a decades-long trend.
Just because this took place in 68, it wasn't a one-time commitment. That's something that has to, constantly be worked out.
Pushing for change, building off of decades of reforms. Bridget Aduadier, Northwestern News Network.
Thanks, Bridget. And beyond campus, community members coming together for the Evanston YWCA's annual Unite Against Racism event Thursday, encouraging Evanston residents to stand against racism and fight for justice. NNN's Sadie Frankel was there.
Evanston residents lined Ridge Avenue holding signs for the YWCA's 4th annual Unite Against Racism rally.
It's a part of a national movement toward, racial justice.
The event featuring a gathering on Ridge where attendees held signs and recited the Racial Justice Pledge, and a talkback for people to share their personal experiences relating to racism and solutions to combat it.
A lot of people underplay racism, and I think it's important that they know that it's real.
The Evanston Rally and Talkback, just part of a 3-day event spanning Skokie, Wilmette, and Evanston.
Just that show of solidarity, it shows that there are people who are willing to, support us.
The event, though widely supported, has experienced negative comments and emails. Because of this, community support means even more to the organization.
See the show of support and the visuals show of support.
Despite the pushback, many residents appreciate community events like this.
Getting out into the community and making sure that messages are out there about, doing that kind of work that's wonderful.
Through all of the YWCA's events, the goal remains consistent: to promote anti-racism and work toward a future without racism.
Impact our family, our friends, and then we want to start looking at policy and system solutions.
Sadie Frankel, Northwestern News Network.
Thanks, Sadie. You can find out more about these events at ywcaens.org.
And coming up, preparing animal accommodations. We give you an update on a new Evanston animal shelter that furry friends will soon call home.
Also coming up, how medium-sized black holes behave like toddlers. We give you all the latest breakthroughs from Northwestern researchers.
And later this hour, Northwestern Congressional Awards recognize 5 students for 3 different scholarships. We'll be right back.
At Northwestern, we're Wildcats in every way.
Go Northwestern, break right through that. With our colors flying, we will cheer you all the go. Go you Northwestern, fight for victory, sweet victory, for the fame of our fair name, and go Northwestern, win that game. Go Cats!
At Northwestern University, we are pioneering innovation and achieving excellence across every imaginable discipline. At Northwestern University, the possibilities are endless.
Organizations on campus and in Evanston honoring survivors of sexual violence this past month. NNN's Shravya Punt shares the challenges facing activists and survivors and what they're doing to make change.
T-shirts sharing messages of pain, strength, and support. Survivors gathering at Northwestern's Women's Center to share experiences during the last week of Sexual Assault Awareness Month.
Survivors need to feel heard, feel welcomed, and feel like they belong.
The Clothesline Project is part of a campus-wide effort called Take Back the Night, giving survivors a place to come together.
It makes you feel like you're not alone in all of this struggle.
But survivors feeling a lack of support from the NU community.
There's this kind of tendency to believe the abuser over the survivor.
Northwestern Center for Awareness, Response, and Education, or CARE, offers support to hundreds of student survivors each year, with only 4 staff members.
We do everything we can, but there's a few of us.
Also facing challenges, Cook County's free survivor support agency, the Northwest Center Against Sexual Assault, or CASA.
We're looking at potentially having to cut some positions.
According to the Illinois Coalition Against Sexual Assault, a recent federal cut to the Victims of Crimes Act will reduce funding available to Illinois rape crisis centers by $9.5 million, nearly 50% of their annual budget. Northwest CASA urging supporters to help in a recent fundraiser and by writing to legislators.
There are going to be survivors that slip through the crack, and we can't have that.
On and off campus, survivors and activists trying to gain momentum.
It's a way to take back a lot of the voice that feels like it's been denied for so long.
A cause worth fighting for.
And Shravya joins us now from another event bringing awareness to sexual assault prevention. Shravya?
Thanks, Gabby. I'm here in Tech where Frankie Ciparroni, a member of the Rape, Abuse, and Incest National Network, is speaking tonight about sexual assault prevention in Greek life. I spoke with event organizer Rose Hunsker earlier today. Here's what she had to say.
Because Greek life is a place where I spend a lot of my time, I've heard a lot and noticed a lot of even just small behaviors or attitudes or just the way we talk and interact that I thought, we could really use something that could bring both fraternities and sororities together.
Ciparroni will be speaking tonight at 7:30 with Carrie Wachter, Director of CARE. Shravya Pant, Northwestern News Network. Back to you, Gabby.
Thanks, Shravya. Sexual Assault Awareness Month is over, but the advocacy work continues year-round.
Congress awards students annually with 3 scholarships honoring the legacies of President Harry Truman, Senator Barry Goldwater, and Representatives Morris and Stewart Udall, and Northwestern students swept up recognition in each. Rhodes Scholar and Weinberg senior Irina Patrick receives another award, the Truman Scholarship, for her work in public service. While Weinberg third years Levi Hugendorn, Caitlin Hung, and Carol Magales win the Goldwater Scholarship, which is awarded to students looking to pursue careers in the natural sciences, math, and engineering. And lastly, the Udall Foundation recognized Weinberg third year Eve Downing for their scholarship because of her commitment to environmental issues. This is the second year in a row which NU students were chosen for each award.
For students looking to snag a cheap bite, one Northwestern organization is out cooking on the grill. If you've never heard of the program, don't worry, they've only been doing it for about 20 years. Luis Castaneda brings us more of what you may have been missing.
With springtime comes grill time. The Shield Catholic Center hosting their program Cheap Lunch.
It helps us take a break from dining hall food.
For only $2, students can get a lot of bang for their buck.
We have brats and hamburgers, and we have chicken and hot dogs. And then downstairs we also serve salad, a soda, so it's a pretty good spread of food.
Higgins says the program started after an encounter in the summer of 2003, when all they had to offer a student was a can of tuna.
And she said, oh yeah, that's great, I'm hungry, I'll have that. So we opened up the tuna fish and she got a fork and ate it right out of the can.
It's since grown to be an annual program held on Thursdays at noon. And it's not just about the cheap food.
Community is what it all comes down to, right? Creating a space where people can come regardless of their background, get food, enjoy community.
And they even have vegetarian options, so no one misses out on the fun. Higgins says even though they're a Catholic center, everyone is welcome. Students can even volunteer.
Students are enjoying being volunteering during Cheap Lunch, and also that they can be part of it and engage with each other and also eat for free.
Higgins says attendance is growing.
It kind of grows really by word of mouth. And sometimes by the smoke going off into campus and people smell hot dogs and hamburgers and wonder what's going on.
So if you smell some burgers on the grill while passing Tech, know that there's Cheap Lunch just across the street.
Joins us now. So can you tell us more about who shows up at this event?
Okay, well, you know Tech is right across the street, so you're going to see students, faculty, all of them very welcoming. So don't be afraid to join in on the fun.
Thanks, Louis. The program runs every quarter except over the summer. It's $2 for students and $4 for non-students. They're only accepting cash at this moment. Coming up right after the break, the City Council approving facility changes to Evanston's animal shelter. We show you how the pups and cats are adjusting.
And even after a rough 2 seasons, Northwestern football wins big with some Wildcats headed to the NFL.
Also, rain or shine. I'll be back later with the latest weather forecast, as April showers haven't exactly brought May flowers. We'll be right back after the break.
How prepared is your family if a tornado shows up at your doorstep, or a flood, or a hurricane? You can't just turn away a natural disaster. That's why it's important to go to ready.gov/plan now. It has the tools and tips you need to make an emergency plan with your family. So if disaster comes knocking,
let's go.
You'll be ready to help keep your family safe.
It's just a pizza.
Yes. Make a plan today.
Resuming moments like these starts with protecting our kids against COVID-19 and dangerous new variants. Get the latest facts by visiting getvaccineanswers.org and speaking to your pediatrician or healthcare provider.
What a disaster!
You're a disaster.
This is a disaster.
You can't be ready for every little disaster, but you can prepare for a big one. Make an emergency plan today.
Welcome back. Now for a look at some of the friendliest faces around town. City Council approved a $6.85 million contract to build a new facility for Evanston's furry friends in February. NNN's Magia Medne went to the Evanston Animal Shelter to find out what changes have happened since.
The rooms of the old animal shelter on Ogden Street are gradually emptying.
We had to move the cats here to 611 South Boulevard, where we are today, and the dogs will move to the recycling center, which is next door to the current shelter.
The shelter is preparing to be demolished to make space for a new building. While cats are already exploring their new environment, the dogs will be moved by May 19.
Old building is 2,800 square feet, basically. The new building will be about 8,500 square feet.
Amanda Ward, a student volunteer at the shelter, says changes were needed.
More dogs, more cats, and just a little bit of extra space so that the animals can move a little bit more comfortably and that the people can move more comfortably while taking care of them and volunteering.
Size is not the only improvement. A medical suite and an intake area are expected to be built. There will also be changes in the food pantry, where people in need can pick up free pet supplies.
There will be lockers outside, sort of like Amazon lockers.
The new building will be LEED certified.
All electric, so no gas. The roof will be set up so that it can hold solar panels. They won't necessarily directly power that building, but I think they'll go into the grid.
Until then, Pasenko says she expects cats and dogs will remain in 2 different locations for about a year.
Be patient with this, because I know it's confusing that you come to one place for cats and one place for dogs.
For animal shelter visitors, this division means the greatest question of all time. Are you a cat or a dog person? Magia Medne, Northwestern News Network.
Thanks, Magia. Turning back to campus for a look at the Wildcats, some major sports updates. Here's NNN's Kendall Wright with the latest. Kendall, where should we even begin?
Thanks, Gabrielle. While it had been rumored for months, Northwestern Sullivan-Ubben men's basketball head coach Chris Collins and the university have agreed to a 3-year contract extension. The deal now keeps Collins in Evanston through 2028. In a statement, Collins said, quote, "It has been an honor to be the head coach at Northwestern University for the last 10 years. To have the opportunity to be a part of accomplishing so many firsts in the history of the basketball program during my tenure has been special. And I can't wait to get to work to pursue more amazing moments in the future." The extension comes after Northwestern's second NCAA tournament berth in program history. Both trips to the Big Dance have been under Collins, who is this season's Big Ten Coach of the Year. Moving over to the Diamond, there is more hardware coming to Northwestern's spring sports. The Wildcats completed a 3-game sweep over Nebraska, clinching a share of the Big Ten regular season title for the 2nd year in a row. The Cats clinched the title Sunday after rallying for 5 runs to defeat the Huskers 10-9. First-year Kansas Robinson put the Cats on top for good when she stole home in the sloppy conditions. This marks the Wildcats' first back-to-back titles since 1986. The Cats were also undefeated at home this season, something that has not happened this millennium. Northwestern will close out the regular season this weekend in Piscataway against Rutgers. Turning to football, Northwestern had 4 players selected in the NFL draft last week in Kansas City, 2 on offense and 2 on defense. Offensive lineman Peter Skoronsky heads to Music City as he was selected number 11th overall by the Tennessee Titans. Cornerback Cameron Mitchell was selected by the Cleveland Browns, joining the Dog Pound. And finally, defensive lineman Adetomiwa Adebore and running back Evan Hull were selected by the Indianapolis Colts, teammates once again. Though Northwestern has struggled the last 2 seasons, these 4 have shown why they're worthy of being at the next level. After numerous collegiate accolades, these Wildcats now have their eyes and paws set on a new goal, winning the big game.
Thanks, Kendall. Once again, congratulations to those selected in this year's draft.
Well, now let's check in with NNN's Sabrina Carson for a look at the weather. Sabrina?
Thank you, Julia. Hello, Wildcats, and hello, May, a month that is sure to be fun, sunny, and bright, but not this week. Wednesday will start us off with some partly cloudy weather with temperatures in between 40 and 50 degrees. Perfect weather to stay in, relax, or study for those midterms you've been putting off. I'm talking to you, bio majors. Thursday will bring about more sun, and more sun always equals more fun. May the 4th will finally be upon us, and with it, Star Wars Day. But the only force here will be those southeast winds pushing 10 miles per hour. Friday, we will be back to cloudy weather, but it seems luck is on our side when looking at temperature for the next 3 days. 67 degrees, 64 degrees, and 69 degrees respectively. Sunday storms will give some rainy relief to all students, bringing about the end of midterms and washing the slate clean until finals in about a month. Thank you, quarter system. The sun may still be yet to come, but for now, this reporter will enjoy staying in and binging Netflix. Back to you at the desk.
Thanks, Sabrina. Coming up, toddler tantrums taken to space. We tell you about NU research into how black holes hurl stars across the galaxy.
And later this hour, walk into the WAMU show. We take you behind the scenes of its 92nd annual performance.
How prepared is your family if a tornado shows up at your doorstep, or a flood, or a hurricane? You can't just turn away a natural disaster. That's why it's important to go to ready.gov/plan now. It has the tools and tips you need to make an emergency plan with your family. So if disaster comes knocking,
let's go.
You'll be ready to help keep your family safe.
It's just a pizza.
Yes. Make a plan today.
Resuming moments like these starts with protecting our kids against COVID-19 and dangerous new variants. Get the latest facts by visiting getvaccineanswers.org and speaking to your pediatrician or healthcare provider.
What a disaster.
You're a disaster.
This is a disaster.
You can't be ready for every little disaster, but you can prepare for a big one. Make an emergency plan today.
Welcome back. It's time to put on our lab coats and goggles for this week's Under the Microscope. Here's the latest research news from the university. A new Northwestern-led study has found that if they were to exist, intermediate mass black holes would likely devour wayward stars like a messy toddler. That is, they take a few bites and then fling the remains across the galaxy. Northwestern astrophysicists used 32 computer simulations to model black holes of varying masses and then hurled stars, roughly about the size of our sun, right past them to see what might happen. NIH Toolbox version 3, a new iPad app launched by Northwestern Medicine, helps measure specific aspects of cognitive, motor, sensory, and emotional function in 5 minutes or less. The app is available to download now and will help doctors screen people ages 3 to 85 years for a wide range of neurological diseases and syndromes, from young children who need a screening ahead of school to older adults concerned about dementia. And finally, researchers led by Northwestern and the University of Texas at Austin have developed the first cardiac implant that can treat cardiac arrhythmia with light. Upon sensing cardiac irregularities, the graphene-made implant will then deliver electrical stimulation through a series of pulses, stimulating the heart without constraining or altering the heart's natural motions. Well, Gabrielle, I think it's just amazing what science can do. It blows me away every single time.
Yeah, I always love to hear everything Northwestern researchers and students are doing. It's so different from anything that I'm doing in my classroom.
Definitely.
And I think it just really speaks to the depth of Northwestern's campus.
Definitely, definitely. Well, coming up, calling off COVID guidelines, we take a look at the changes coming to NU's campus.
And discussing health disparities. The first annual health fair since the pandemic introduces Evanston's new 5-year plan to improve local public health.
How do you know when you've made the right decision? It's the feeling you get in your gut, the one that tells you what's right or wrong. It's the one that says, sure, I can have a drink, or the feeling that says, okay, I've been drinking, now what? It's the voice inside you that says, I'm buzzed. Better leave the car when it's time to go. Plan ahead. Catch a sober ride. Buzz driving is drunk driving.
I don't know why you're so sad. You've got a roof over your head.
You gotta stop with that depression stuff. That's what white people think. You alright?
How do you know when you've made the right decision? It's the feeling you get in your gut, the one that tells you what's right or wrong. It's the one that says, sure, I can have a drink, or the feeling that says, okay, I've been drinking, now what? It's the voice inside you that says, I'm buzzed. Better leave the car when it's time to go. Plan ahead. Catch a sober ride. Buzz driving is drunk driving.
I don't know why you're so sad. You've got a roof over your head.
You gotta stop with that depression stuff. That's what white people think. You alright?
It just feels like it's coming from everywhere.
Do you want to talk about it?
You can talk to me if you're feeling sad.
Whenever you need to talk, I'm here, okay?
I'll see y'all.
Got some batteries and 2 flashlights.
What's up, champ?
Right, it's cool.
I feel like you get taller every time I see you.
Coming up on NNR's second half hour, removing campus COVID guidelines, what the new protocols are and when they'll be implemented.
Building his legacy, we take a look into the life and accomplishments of one Evanston architect.
And love is in the air and on stage
we open the curtains to the annual WAMU show, Romance en Route. Hello, and welcome to the second half hour of the Northwestern News Report. I'm Diego Ramos-Bachara.
And I'm Michaela Denault. At the start of the show, we told you about students protesting Speaker James Lindsay's visit to campus. NNN's Vanessa Kelson spoke with Caleb Nunez, a representative of Young Americans for Freedom, about why the group thought it was important to bring Lindsay to campus. Let's watch.
You've talked a lot about divisiveness, division. We know that there's a group of protesters sort of collecting outside right now. I mean, what is your response to those students that are concerned about some of, what could be considered really inflammatory things that he said previously?
Yes, I mean, firstly, I'm not here to defend anyone else's past tweets or things that you might find on the Southern Poverty Law Center or Wikipedia. That's James's situation, and I definitely think a lot of these things are blown out of proportion because James is not a hateful person, and he has really, really great things to say that are really based on this liberal idea that that everyone should be able to have their own opinion. He's really studied the philosophy, and unfortunately, there are things on the internet that can cause people to have visceral reactions, and that's definitely a reality that we acknowledge. But just by looking at someone's tweets, I don't really think that's a great way to really capture the brain, the talent that someone has. And I definitely think that a lot of the protesters are missing out on a great event, and they'd be much better suited being in the audience.
Were you expecting the backlash and protests that you've already gotten before the event has even started?
No, actually. James Lindsay's a very small name, but unfortunately we have some very passionate students on campus that are really, really willing to do the digging. And unfortunately it doesn't help that we do have, there's kind of, people like to use Wikipedia to really, people like to slander people with names, because once you have a name, you can't get it off you. And by putting that name on James, they really wanted to put a target on his back so that anything that he does, people are constantly looking back at his Wikipedia page and seeing these horrible things. But if you actually really look into his work, he's brilliant, and he is not, divisive is all relative. What might divide some might not divide others. And everyone has different ideas, and sometimes ideas we're going to vehemently disagree with. But the message that we're really trying to send is that James is not here to divide people. He is here to educate people. And so that's really the mission that we're sticking with.
And Vanessa is joining NNR Live. Vanessa, welcome. What's the latest?
We are outside of Swift Hall right now. For a moment, just about 10 minutes ago, a group of protesters actually entered the building. Security told them that the space was at capacity and therefore they had to leave. The protesters left completely peacefully. They're now gathered behind us. You can see that the crowd was dispersed a little bit, but people are still here. For a bit, they were singing Party in the USA by Miley Cyrus, as well as other chants. Logan Skajana will give us the full update on what exactly students heard inside the room. For now, I'm Vanessa Kelson with Northwestern News Network.
Thanks, Vanessa. Next up, Northwestern announcing on Wednesday that all remaining COVID-19 protocols will be incorporated into broader health resources. This means starting in this summer, NU will end the student vaccine requirement, take quarantine housing offline, and no longer have COVID-19 testing at the Jacobs Center. Gabrielle Coriati spoke with Northwestern Vice President for Operations Luke Fagora about what these changes mean. Gabrielle, this feels like it's the end of an era for COVID-19 policies on campus. Can you tell us more about what this means?
That's right. That really is how it feels. These changes are coming after 3 years of frequent updates regarding mask mandates, on-campus testing policies, and vaccine requirements. In March 2020, Northwestern sent all students home and all spring quarter classes went virtual. Classes stayed mostly virtual until fall 2021, and when they returned then, there were mask and vaccine requirements. Winter 2022 is when the Omicron variant spiked and classes were virtual for 2 more weeks. But by the end of that quarter, the mask mandate was gone. When I spoke to Fagora, he said he hopes people generally feel the administration handled COVID-19 well. Take a listen.
I think when we think back, it was a journey, kind of high points and low points, but I think on the whole, our community really was pretty resilient.
Now, all of the remaining COVID-19 focused mandates will be gone by June.
So, Gabby, without quarantine housing, what happens if a student with a roommate tests positive for COVID?
Yeah, so what Fagora told me is that they will save rooms around campus for immunocompromised students who have a roommate who tests positive. But other than that, they'll be treating this the same as if your roommate has the flu and you'll be expected to stick with them.
People are generally more comfortable with the fact that it's hard to fully separate yourself from kind of exposure. We're all interacting with people every day.
So they're also getting rid of the vaccination requirement. What did Fagora have to say about that?
Yeah, so it's the same thing. They already got rid of it for faculty and staff. It's now students they're just getting rid of it for. They're following health guidelines, and once again, they don't require it for the flu, so they won't be requiring it for COVID.
And there also won't be free COVID testing on campus, and tests aren't required to be reported. How will Northwestern track an outbreak?
So once again, Fagora said it's like the flu. They don't track officially if you test positive for the flu, you don't have to report it, but through their health systems, they can still tell when there's an endemic.
We've never had a requirement to report, if you're sick with the flu. Our health service and then broader kind of public health environment still has a pretty good idea of, is there a flu kind of epidemic underway?
So last week marked the 75th anniversary of Israel's independence. Now, Northwestern students celebrated the Yom Ha'atzmaut Fest on North's lawn, but were met with protesters from Students for Justice in Palestine. Now, after hearing that the protests were expected at the event, the executive director of Hillel, Michael Simon, encouraged students to still come and celebrate.
And I would really hope that we could get past having people standing on one side and people standing on another, and more having people coming together and having conversation, because ultimately I think a lot of people just feel passionate.
Students for Justice in Palestine did not respond to our request for comment.
Northwestern Students Organizing for Labor Rights, or SOLAR, hosted an event yesterday at Multicultural Student Affairs to celebrate International Workers' Day, or May Day. At May Day, attendees ate food, listened to music, participated in a raffle, and donated to mutual aid. Along with SOLAR, NUGW, and other organizations intended to support workers' rights. May Day, which started in 1889, honors the people that participated in the Haymarket Affair, a labor demonstration that was bombed in 1886. SOLAR members say that this day is all about the workers.
Labor Day is often used as a tool to redirect attention away from workers, whereas May Day is more the celebration of workers.
To learn more about events hosted by SOLAR, check out their Instagram at solar_NU.
Your body won't be the only thing transforming at Blum Gym. The gym itself will be transforming as well. This is because improvements are coming to the existing facilities through expansions in the strength training space, updating the strength and cardio area flooring, and additional updates to the overall space. Now, NNN asked whether that would include upgrades to the actual fitness equipment, but Northwestern Recreation would not say. The gym will remain closed, or the gym will be closed for the rest of the academic year beginning on May 15th, and Blumquist plans to reopen in the fall.
The Evanston Public Library hosting its first health fair since the pandemic. The aim of Saturday's event was to alleviate racial disparities. NNN's Isabella Lisco spoke with participants about health care in the Evanston community.
Evanston's health fair showcases the newly published Evanston Project for the Local Assessment of Needs, or E-Plan, a 5-year strategy to improve public health. The plan reveals extreme racial disparities.
I don't think that a lot of Evanstonians would be surprised by the concept, but when you see the actual numbers behind these patterns, they are staggering.
An example, Evanston residents live an average of 82 years, 3 years longer than the national average. Once that's broken down by neighborhood, however, the E-Plan revealing a 13-year difference in life expectancy between Evanston's predominantly white 7th Ward and black 5th Ward.
The history of segregation in Evanston has played out in the patterns of varying life expectancy we see today. And so unfortunately, racism is one of the biggest root causes.
Other root causes are poverty and lack of resources. The health fair working to bridge these gaps.
Important to be part in this health fair so that we can share our purpose in the community.
I'm here at the Access Community Health Network table at the health fair at the Evanston Public Library, where they are increasing knowledge of safe sex practices with a Jeopardy game, ordering games, and lots of other activities.
You are the most important person, and that you should be your own advocate.
Social worker Celeste Sanson also advocating for survivors of domestic violence.
I'm just really glad to be here and given this opportunity to continue to support all communities in need.
Support also happening at the city level with a guaranteed income pilot program and the reparations plan.
Anything that we can do to build wealth and economic well-being in our community is going to be really important.
Because your health matters. Isabella Lisco, Northwestern News Network.
The full E-Plan report is available on the Evanston Health Department website at cityofelvanston.org/eplan.
After the break, the annual WAMU show coming back to Northwestern's theater for its 92nd time.
How prepared is your family if a tornado shows up at your doorstep, or a flood, or a hurricane? You can't just turn away a natural disaster. That's why it's important to go to ready.gov/plan now. It has the tools and tips you need to make an emergency plan with your family. So if disaster comes knocking,
Let's go.
you'll be ready to help keep your family safe.
It's just a pizza.
Make a plan today.
Resuming moments like these starts with protecting our kids against COVID-19 and dangerous new variants. Get the latest facts by visiting getvaccineanswers.org and speaking to your pediatrician or healthcare provider.
What a disaster.
You're a disaster.
This is a disaster.
You can't be ready for every little disaster, but you can prepare for a big one. Make an emergency plan today.
Welcome back. The WAMU show is Northwestern's oldest theatrical tradition, and it's back this year for its 92nd year.
As NNN's Lena Peterson tells us, love is in the air for this year's production.
Bringing a story of travel and love to life on stage, performances continuing this week for the WAMU show's production of Romance en Route.
It's a really wacky, romantic comedy story. It's got a lot of different, zany characters in it.
Themes of growth and personal exploration resonating with the student writers.
The message of the show to me is just the idea of love and how I think allowing yourself to have new experiences and opening yourself up to love.
The entirely student-run cast and crew sharing a celebration of Paris, romance, and joy.
At the heart of it, it's a story about love and how beautiful it is to be open to love, to experience it, to share it with other people.
Costume designer and School of Communication first-year Paisley Candler designing costumes for the cast with a Parisian theme in mind.
I love that it's a rom-com. I feel like that's always what I'm drawn to, so it's nice to have that as my project.
The cast and characters making connections and finding their way.
You go through a lot of things when you're young, and it's most important just to stay true to yourself, even when you're trying to figure out who you are.
For the audience, a rom-com that will lift spirits and spread joy.
People should come see the show because it's a celebration of love in all forms, and it's a 2000.
And joining me now is Mateos Barbie. So Mateos, how did the first 3 shows this weekend?
They were so much fun. We had a blast. Everything came together last minute. Creating new work is so thrilling up until the last moment, and it came together, and it was really beautiful.
That's amazing. And why should Evanston residents and Northwestern students come see the show?
I think that they should come see the show because it is a testament to such a long-standing theatrical tradition here, and it really celebrates the creativity of 92 years of Northwestern alumni, which is so beautiful and so exciting. And this story reflects the stories of who we are as a campus now, and I think that's really exciting to get to share.
Oh my gosh, yeah, that sounds absolutely amazing. And what's one of your favorite songs or scenes in the show?
My personal favorite scene in the show is a song that I sing called A Single Step. My character is a chronic matchmaker, and this is his song where he gets a new friend to join him in his matchmaking endeavors, and it's so much fun to sing and to act out.
It's amazing. Well, there are still 3 more chances to see Romance en Route this Friday and Saturday at 7:30 p.m. and Sunday at 2 p.m. And tickets can be purchased at wamushow.org. Back to you.
The Beanan School of Music will showcase the work of German-British Baroque composer George Frederick Handel.
Yeah, it's part of the school's Evelyn Dunbar Memorial Early Music Festival.
Visiting artists and scholars will commemorate Handel's work in a series of performances and panel discussions, which will culminate in a performance of Handel's most renowned opera, Alcina, and distinguished cantata, Ode to St. Cecilia.
Yeah, the event is set to take center stage at the Alice Miller Chapel, the Ryan Opera Theater, and Kahn Auditorium on Northwestern's Evanston campus. And the event will run from May 21st to the 28th.
A new student-produced opera debuted in the Word Center this past weekend.
Yeah, and NNN's Lance Wilhelm goes behind the scenes on what makes this show one of a kind.
Creating Small Thunder, an entirely original student opera, opening to a packed house on Friday, uniting artists from varied backgrounds to create a shared story.
The best art is when you're bringing people from different disciplines and it's collaborative, and this opera does this in a way that nothing I've experienced on campus does.
Being in second year, Maya Vandegrift, the production's director, composer, and writer, began working on the opera in September of 2021. Set on a farm in the rural Midwest, a pair of sisters deals with the tragic loss of their mother in a barn fire. While based on Vandegrift's Ohio hometown, the entire production team connecting with the themes.
It's about grief, it's about family, and it's about healing.
The 30-student team preparing everything from the music and blocking to the lighting and set design to ensure that the final product lived up to their vision.
We're really making it our own.
Beyond the themes, the opera's queer representation striking a chord with some of the cast and crew. At the center of the story, a family with two moms.
I'm also part of the queer community. I'm bisexual, and I don't know, I never ever have gotten to really explore that part of myself in art.
Being in fourth year, McKenna Troy, who plays one of the moms, says she connected to her character having grown up with two moms herself.
It's huge to be a part of an opera that feels like me versus some caricature that you're putting on.
An original work reflecting the diversity and stories of those who created it. Lance Wilhelm, Northwestern News Network.
We'll be right back.
At Northwestern, we're Wildcats in every way.
Cheer you all to go. Go you Northwestern, fight for victory, sweet victory, spread for the fame of our fair name, and go Northwestern, win that game. Go Cats!
On a very different note, 130 years ago, the eyes of the world turned towards Chicago. It was hosting the World's Fair, and they came to see the vision of architects.
Yeah, NNN's Jeremy Fredericks takes a look at the story of the Evanston architect who coordinated it all.
The World's Fair in Chicago was designed by Daniel Burnham, a prolific architect who spent decades in Evanston. Burnham lived near Dempster Street from the 1880s until his death in 1912.
He's always called a Chicago architect, but knowing that he chose to live in Evanston, I think speaks a lot for the city.
But for 2 years, Burnham lived in Chicago, managing the construction of the World's Fair.
There were people who came from the East expecting to see not much, who then wrote letters back home saying to their friends and relatives, saying, whatever you're doing, stop it. You gotta get out here. You gotta see this.
Burnham worked in Chicago, building other skyscrapers.
He was probably the perfect guy to manage that fair.
While Burnham spent most of his time in Chicago, he designed buildings in Evanston too, including the Noyes Cultural Arts Center and Fisk Hall.
Certainly brilliant man who had a powerful influence on the shape of cities.
After the World's Fair, Burnham working to design cities around the world that emphasize green, open space.
There was certainly a tremendous impulse after the fair to say, why can't we make the cities that we live in look more like this ideal city?
An impact on Chicago and on campus. Jeremy Fredericks, Northwestern News Network.
No, we're not. We're not going to win.
Evanston honors Burnham with a street and park near his former home. This is so great. I just love to see all the familiar buildings that I know that he's helped build.
No, I mean, I think it's wonderful the fact that we have an actual Evanston celebrity that's been able to contribute to, you know, Chicago's architectural landscape. I think that's a really, really cool thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely.
Now we want to turn to Northwestern has chosen its now we want to turn to Logan Schijano, who's out of the YAF speaker event.
Logan, can you hear us?
Yeah, guys, I just got outside of the room where Mr. Lindsay was giving his lecture. It was not quite a full crowd at the start. We were not permitted to bring any backpacks. There was a pretty large security presence in and around and outside of the room. But about 30 minutes into the speech, I'd say, some of the demonstrators started walking inside the room slowly, you know, not being disruptive or anything. Mr. Lindsay actually kind of engaged with the protesters, I would say. He was kind of, you know, taking shots throughout the speech kind of at the people outside, saying that they're part of the woke culture that's part of the problem, that's promoting socialism. Those were kind of his words. He said that you are part of the problem, directly addressing protesters who had made their way into the room. But his speech was talking about his issue with intersectionality and basically claiming that those who try to promote these ideals are essentially promoting communism in America. The second half of his lecture that I was listening to, basically he was taking us back to communist China and making that the equivalent, trying to say that we're living in that right now. So it was a very meandering speech, hard to kind of decipher through everything he said. There was nothing necessarily contentious about it, not taking shots at any specific people, but he did kind of engage with the protesters in the room. No one was actually kicked out, but it was kind of a back and forth dialogue at times.
Logan Schijano, thank you so very much, and we will be sure to check in for more updates. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Logan. Next up, Northwestern has chosen a memoir for its One Book, One Northwestern program. Crying in H Mart by Michelle Zahner will be next year's book. NNN's Angela Zhang takes a look at what went into this year's selection.
NU's annual reading program, One Book, One Northwestern, announcing next year's selection, Crying in H Mart, a memoir written by Michelle Zahner, also known as indie pop artist Japanese Breakfast.
This upcoming academic year, H Mart, and the story of a musician who grew up in its aisles, comes to campus.
I'd like to think of it as a community connector with all the different schools.
Asian American history professor Ji-Yeon Ye is next year's faculty chair.
The One Book program, I think, can really be a way for us to grapple with these really profound issues.
Crying in H Mart is the first Asian American book selection in the history of the One Book program. But Ye says more than that, its themes from multiculturalism to caring for parents and food are universal and felt especially in a city like Chicago.
We can take those to talk about things like Chicago's history as a city of immigrants.
Some students identifying with the book.
It's funny because the book is called Crying in H Mart, and I ended up crying in public places twice while reading this.
For the broader NU reading community,
take these conversations to think about what it means to become your own self.
Building intentional compassion between people of different experiences. Angela Zhang, Northwestern News Network.
Crying in H Mart. Thank you so very much, Angela. Well, that's all the time we have for tonight.
Thank you so much for watching our special hour-long show. Be sure to check out Politicat.
I'm Diego Ramos-Bechara.
And I'm Michaela Denault. Good night.